We are here to warn you not to draft these players in fantasy football. It's not just like, well, we don't like these players this year. We have legitimate reasons why these players concern us. And at price, you shouldn't be taking them in your fantasy football league. So watch this video and we can help save you from some mistakes that could potentially cost you your fantasy football season. Let's start with Deebo Samuel. Not drafting him this year. And no, it's not because he's fat. I mean, we've seen fat players before in the NFL. See Eddie Lacy, right? It's not a huge deal that Deebo Samuel is fat, even though he probably is. Really, the reason that people are drafting Deebo Samuel is because they're freaking out about Terry McLaurin. And we're here to tell you, stop freaking out about Terry, because it's really not worth freaking out about right now. Terry obviously was activated off the PUP list, by now, but hopefully by the time this video comes out, he's signed and we're good to go. All expectations, Vegas betting lines, all pointing towards Terry McLaurin signing back with the Washington Commanders, what projects to be a good offense. The one case you could make for Deebo is, hey, Deebo, he's playing in a good offense, and so since he's a player in good offense, you should draft him. And I usually would say, yeah, that's true. But then I look at Deebo Samuel's reception data from last year, which basically analyzes how good of a route runner he is. How much is he winning, which for wide receivers is important. Here's how much Deebo Samuel is winning.
Hey.
Against man coverage last year, 1st percentile. Against press coverage, 2nd percentile. Against zone coverage, 30th percentile. He has one of the worst route running profiles of any wide receiver in the NFL. Period. And what does this mean? I mean, last year he took 40%.
Gadget guy.
It is, and he's fine for that. 40% of his snaps from the slot, and Deebo could be better as a best ball pick because of this. But Deebo, as an actual, I'm starting him in my fantasy lineup this year. No. Look, he's okay against zone, but against man, against press, I mean, he's not great. If you get the ball, to him in open space, he might be better this year. But at the same time, he's not going to be a high target volume guy because he simply does not win enough routes. And that is factual. The data on his route running is not good. He does not win anymore. And so basically they're going to have to use him creatively. I'm not going to bet on a guy in the 7th round that is going to be used creatively in space as a gadget guy. They're not going to feed Deebo like Deebo was fed in San Francisco. Those days are over. Even that Deebo was much better at winning routes than this Deebo is. Much better. His drop-off has been significant. Not to mention, Deebo Samuel cannot stay healthy. He's healthy this year, but why draft him thinking, oh yeah, Deebo's going to stay healthy an entire year? What are we expecting here? I mean, for the last couple years, even with Deebo Samuel, he hasn't really been able to do much in terms of production. 2023, he was the wide receiver 15. He was the wide receiver 3 in 2021, had an off year, and then came back, played 15 games, wide receiver 15. But he only had 89 targets that year. Part of it was he had 7 touchdowns that year. Plus, he got some rushing usage that year. Will they use Deebo Samuel in the backfield? I don't know. They're shopping Brian Robinson, but I'm not going to bet on that. Last year in 15 games, he took a huge step down. He had the same amount of targets, had less touchdowns, had less yardage, had less yak, and wasn't productive. He was a wide receiver 44. And right now he's being drafted around that price. I won't do it. I won't do it. And again, you're only really seeing people, move Terry up their boards because they're freaking out about Terry McLaurin. Deebo up their board because they're freaking about Terry. I'm not freaking out about Terry, so I'm not moving Deebo up my board, and I'm not picking him this year.
I think DJ Moore is a guy that we're just kind of avoiding at this point in the fantasy season because ultimately it does come down to like which wide receiver do you prefer in that offense, DJ Moore or Rome Odunze? And regardless of who you might like slightly prefer, there is a significant value gap between where these guys are being drafted in your fantasy leagues. And again, we saw this in the Flock League where DJ Moore went in like the mid-4th and Rome Odunze fell all the way down to the 5-6 turn. And if you're telling me that regardless of your opinion on DJ Moore and Odunze and who's going to end up being the lead wide receiver there, if you're telling me there's going to be a round and a half difference in terms of what they're actually going to do production-wise, I'd say that's a little bit extreme. I mean, from what we're hearing out of training camp and the usage that Rome Odunze is getting on the outside in the red zone and the contested catch situations that they're putting him in because he is just the superior route runner in that offense. I mean, talk about reception perception and inefficiency. If you look at DJ Moore's, it's not pretty at all, and it has not gotten better as he's gotten older. So even though he's heading into a better situation this season, Rome Odunze is too, and they drafted Rome Odunze to be the long-term top option there. DJ Moore is very good in his own right. I think he does kind of play a better role as a second option there, and Rome Odunze might get the more consistent target volume as he continues to grow his connection with Caleb Williams. So again, with DJ Moore's price, like if you want to take a shot on him and like the mid-fifth, if he falls there, I'm totally fine with that. If you've got a half-round difference between him and Odunze, that's reasonable. But again, if it's more like a round and a half and Rome Odunze's falling as far as the 5-6 turn, like just take the shot there instead when you're looking at the Bears wide receiver room, because at the end of the day, we can have a take on Odunze, you can have a take on DJ Moore. We don't really know for certain. So at that point, just take the cheaper option.
This one's probably going to ruffle some feathers, and I totally understand it, but at least hear me out here. I'm not drafting Brock Bowers this year because every time I've drafted Brock Bowers in mock drafts, I've not liked the way my team turns out. You have to prioritize those flex positions and flexing running backs and wide receivers, and there's such a drop-off at those positions this year when you get later in the drafts. You really can't afford to take Bowers in the first or second round. Not to mention this, where Bowers went in the flock draft was the 1-2 turn. The other thing is he's pretty much always going before the mid-second in most casual leagues. He averaged 15.5 points per game last year. You need to see a significant increase in points per game for him to pay off, because if you're drafting somebody scoring 15 points per game at the 1-2 turn or in the second round, good freaking luck. That is absolutely a bad idea. And the other thing here with Bowers is if you're wanting to draft an elite tight end, just take Trey McBride, who averaged more points per game, 15.6 compared to 15.5, obviously about the same, but had pretty much the same amount of targets, pretty much the same amount of receptions, had less touchdowns, and still scored the amount as Brock Bowers last year. Same amount on a per game basis. Brock Bowers last year, again, he had 153 targets, which was first in the NFL. He had a 26% target share, second in the NFL. Perfect. He runs that back, and that's great. How is Brock Bowers actually going to get to 18 or 19 points per game where you're going to actually see him win leagues where he's being drafted? I think that honestly is a little bit of a long shot when you're talking about Brock Bowers. I think he could easily maintain what he did last year, but unlocking his ceiling in an offense that just added Ashton Genty, I think that's going to be a little tough. I think they're going to run the frick out of the ball this year, a Pete Carroll offense. And when you look at Pete Carroll tight ends in the past, yeah, sure, there have been some guys that have produced there, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows in terms of what their outlook could be for the season. And so Bowers was amazing last year, and I get that he's a sexy pick, and I get that he makes all the highlight plays, and I get that he was on my team last year and I won a championship because of him. But the reason I won the championship wasn't because Brock Bowers scored me 15.5 points per game. That was one reason. The reason was where I drafted him, or where Nathan drafted him before he gifted him to me for free. Nathan drafted him where?
8th.
Great pick. Awesome pick.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
I won the league because of it. And so when you're thinking about that, that's why he won you leagues last year. This year at the 1-2 turn, he's not a league winner at that price. I don't think he's a league winner. And again, I don't like my build. If you're going to take Brock Bowers, just pass on Bowers and take McBride. That's my opinion. Again, I know a lot of you guys are going to absolutely come at me for that. They're going to hate me for that. He's one of the best tight end prospects of all time. I love Brock Bowers. I love watching him play. He's one of the most talented, if not the most talented tight end in the NFL. He absolutely dominated last year. It doesn't change my mind. And again, you can see a lot of this in how we build our teams and how we build our drafts in our algorithm, which we have available for you now. If you check out the link in the pinned comment, you can get our algorithm with our season pass. It's $30. It covers everything for your fantasy football season from now, your drafts, until in-season start sit, all the different tools that you need, including fantasy rankings and everything the site has to offer. Again, we'll take care of you from now until December. You can check it out. If you use code DOMAIN, you can unlock the algorithm, and you can unlock all of our exclusive things as well. But I mean, I'm pretty sure no matter what the bill is, we're telling you not to take Brock Bowers.
Yeah, I think more often than not, we're going to tell you, just let Kenneth Walker go. If you're going to take a shot on a running back in the 4th, 5th rounds, take another guy. Take Henderson in the mid-4th instead of Walker. Take Brees. He's been falling right now. Take James Cook, Chuba Hubbard in the 4th round instead of him. If you don't take a running back at all in the 4th round, go with another position. Wait to take a running back in the 5th at a cheaper price than where Walker's going at the moment. You can go get another rookie option there. You can go get R.J. Harvey. I'd rather take the shot on R.J. Harvey, honestly, heading into this season because, again, there's a big caveat to this move. Because you know why we don't really like Kenneth Walker heading into this season, and it's because you're just setting yourself up for a world of hurt, an absolute world of hurt. The dude is already freaking hurt. He's literally already has a soft tissue injury in training camp. Go freaking figure. Everyone says you can't account for injury. We're not accounting for injury. We're just telling you that Kenneth Walker certified gets injured. That's just what he does. Again, we don't predict injury for guys who have never gotten injured. When this is a trend, when this is a habit, when this is something that happens over and over and over and over and over again every single season, you can probably say, Kenneth Walker's probably going to get injured and miss a significant amount of time. Hence why Charbonnet is going to get more usage. And again, the caveat is here. Do not draft Kenneth Walker in the 4th round unless you reach on Zach Charbonnet in the 9th. If you do not lock down Zach Charbonnet in your running back room to pair with Kenneth Walker, it is not worth drafting Walker. The reason that it's an exception with Charbonnet is you're essentially locking down that backfield, and you've seen what Charbonnet is able to do when Walker goes down. You don't miss a step. So honestly, That is the most important exception. So just understand that you will have to reach, and that's why the caveat isn't that attractive, because it's like, oh, you can just get Charbonnet, no problem. People know what's up with Charbonnet heading into this season. They know what he's capable of doing when Walker gets injured. There's a reason that a running back 2 who doesn't produce when Walker's on the field is still getting drafted in the late 9th, early 10th round. And it's because they know that that Walker is going to miss a significant amount of time. So again, if you take him in the mid to late 4th round, you better lock him down in the early to mid 9th, because someone will take him and he will not make it back to you in the 10th round. So just keep that in mind with Walker and Charbonnet specifically. You will have to sacrifice the flexibility of being able to flex your 9th round pick and just getting a handcuff that's a pretty expensive handcuff with a 4th and a 9th round pick.
Okay, I'm not here to act like I'm a doctor, but on that note, drafting generally...
Dr. Avery.
Dr. Nathan.
Check up.
Drafting injured players in fantasy football is generally just a bad practice. It's just a bad idea. Why would you...
Depending on the price.
Depending on the price, of course. But even then, like, why would you go out and try to find injured players or draft injured players and start at a disadvantage on your team? Trust me, you'll have depth issues in the season. You don't need to start with depth issues by drafting injured players. And so with Joe Mixon, I'm not going to lie, guys. I'm not touching Joe Mixon with a 39.5-foot pole. I'm not doing it. I have no interest in drafting him. Yeah, Nathan said, well, in the 8th round.
It's Christmas time.
I'm like, no. Not in the 8th round. I'm not touching him. I don't care. Yes, he could potentially win you leagues there. But at the same time, I don't really care. I can get other guys who can win me leagues in the 8th round. Joe Mixon, right now, what he's dealing with is a foot and ankle injury. The history of running backs with foot and ankle injuries and their production in fantasy football is not great at all. In fact, it severely limits what they can do from a mobility standpoint, which limits their fantasy football ceiling and production. And Joe Mixon finds himself in the exact same situation. This is actually an injury that Joe Mixon has had for a long time. He had it away from the Texans, and so you saw this, and he was, in a boot or he was in a brace or whatever, came back. He hasn't had surgery on his foot. And every time he's tried to come back, it's gotten bad or it's lingered. And so the risk here is I think Joe Mixon might end up just having surgery and not playing this year. I think there is a decent chance Joe Mixon just doesn't play this year. And I think if he does come back, I think the chance of re-injuring that ankle or retweaking the ankle or whatever, or the foot, I think it's high. Obviously, it's a lingering injury. He's still dealing with it. And for a running back that is as old as Joe Mixon, of course, I love his situation. Of course, if he plays, I think he's probably going to eat.
Yeah, that's a nice voice crack there.
Yeah, I'm taking a page out of your book on that one. I mean, you're the king of voice cracks, so I got to have one every once in a while. If he does play, of course I know what his upside is. But I'm just not drafting a ton of injured players. I don't really want to draft injured players. And Joe Mixon, I legitimately think his entire season is in jeopardy. Maybe I end up looking stupid for that, but I'd rather not take the shot. I'd rather just draft a healthy running back and have him in my starting lineup week 1 and not have to worry about if he's going to come back or if he's going to have surgery later. I'm not drafting Joe Mixon this year. You can have him. I'm not drafting him.
Have you seen where all of these Jags running backs are going in drafts right now? They're all going like 9th, 10th rounds, maybe 10, 11 turn, and they're all going right next to each other. You essentially, when you're drafting one of these guys in that range, are giving yourself a 1 in 3 shot of potentially hitting on the running back 1 in that offense for a couple of weeks. And that's going to be another guy. Then it's going to be the other guy. We really honestly don't know. And again, we can have our takes and we can look at the depth chart and say, well, ETN's the guy. Again, I mean, in the Flock League, Danny Ladd took a shot on ETN at the 8-11. That's pretty disgusting. And again, he could end up hitting on that. But again, somebody could end up hitting on Tank Bigsby at the 10-10. Somebody could end up hitting on Backfield Tootin at the 11-1.
It was me.
At the end of the day, whoever's starting week 1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars at running back, I will bet $1 million is not going to be the running back 1 in that offense at the end of the season. If it's Bigsby to start, it's going to be ETN at some point. If it's ETN to start, it's going to be Tootin at some point. If it's one of those guys, it's going to be the other one at some point. Oh, and by the way, none of these guys can really stay healthy anyways. Tank Bigsby missed a good amount of time last year. I think ETN got banged up as well. And Backfield Tootin just can't hold on to a football. None of these guys are looking pretty heading into this season. I think the run design that Liam Cohen offers as an offensive play caller is what's attractive for that situation. But again, we're already going pretty far with being very high on BTJ and Travis Hunter paired with Trevor Lawrence there. And again, they're going to have to run the ball. They're absolutely going to have to run the ball. I think I think a lot of people, when they're taking a shot on ETN, Bigsby, or Tootin, are looking for the next Bucky Irving in that range at price. And again, this is not a situation that I think is very similar to that, because you had Rachaad White last year going at the 3-4 turn. and you had Bucky being like the only available backup running back in that offense, and he was going in the 11th round. This time around, there's no running back going high, and there are 3 of them all going in the same range. So really your chances at hitting on one of those guys consistently for the rest of the season is really, at best, it's going to be 1 in 3. So at that point, I would rather just take J.K. Dobbins in that range, because he is truly going to be the running back 2 option in that offense in Denver with Sean Payton, where he likes to utilize 2 running backs, right? I would rather take a shot on Cam Scatterbo, who will be, to start the season, backing up Tyron Tracy, even though he's banged up. I would rather take a shot on Woody Marks, who Nick Chubb, probably going to get cut. Dameon Pierce might be starting to start the year because Mixon's not going to start. Woody Marks really is just going to be the next man up. So every single one of these guys, again, none of them have attractive situations, but Spears, Braylon Allen, Ramondre Stevenson, Ray Davis, heck, even Jaden Blue, like every single one of those guys, I think has a easier and quicker route to potentially get significant starting opportunity in their respective offenses consistently, whereas we literally might have a 3-way split in Jacksonville.
I mean, again, it's in the case against this is that Liam Cohen is a very good offensive mind, and he made the Bucs running backs productive, and so why wouldn't he make the Jags running backs productive? Right. And I totally understand that. I think this is an offense that could have productive running backs this year for sure. I just don't really like the idea of buying into a backfield where we literally have no idea who's
you don't know.
Like, you have a 1 in 3 chance of one of them producing, and yes, I'm sure whoever does end up being the consistent starter, the consistent guy there in Jacksonville, could potentially be a very high end up. I could end up being a league winner, honestly, because the Jacksonville Jaguars offense could be so good. But at the same time, why even take the shot? All right, last guy here, Jauan Jennings. At the beginning of the offseason, I thought I would draft a ton of this guy. And then he decided he wanted more money and held out. He hurt his calf, and Brandon Ayuk was posted on Twitter, and he looked like he was running very well. So really, those are the 3 main reasons. I'm like, yeah, Jauan Jennings is still going. Like, where did he go in the Flock League? I mean, he's still going
Jauan Jennings
8th, 9th round, right?
Yeah, so in the Flock League, Jennings went at the 8-9.
Yeah, I'm not taking him there.
Right by Jaden Reed.
I mean,
Jaden Reed's banged up. I'd rather have a Jaden Reed shot.
He went next to Ayuk, and honestly, I'd rather have Ayuk at this point.
I'd rather take Tracy. I'd rather take a tight end there.
At this point, I would rather have Ayuk. And so, but again, Jauan Jennings, like the main reason is because of the calf injury, right? He's still receiving treatment on the calf injury, and so that's going to be something to monitor. But, look, I don't want to buy injured players. I don't want to buy players who haven't necessarily gotten reps with the ones in training camp. Jauan Jennings has had none of that. There are a ton of red flags with Jauan Jennings this year. You saw Brandon Ayuk last year not participate during training camp, and he came back, and he sucked, and then he was hurt. It's just, Quinshon Judkins, same thing, not going through training camp right now. It's lowering him down my rankings because he's literally not practicing at all with the first team offense. None. And Jauan Jennings isn't either. And so he's still getting treatment. Calf injuries are scary, especially for wide receivers. He's not practicing right now. He's been holding out. There's contract discussions. He's probably not going to get traded. But at the same time, when Brandon Ayuk comes back, Jauan Jennings isn't going to be the guy there anyway. It's going to be Kittle, it's going to be Ayuk, and it's going to be Christian McCaffrey, and then Jauan Jennings. And we'll talk about Jauan Jennings. Not to mention, Ricky Pearsall could easily just take away from Jauan Jennings this year. I'd rather bet on Ricky because he's freaking healthy most of the time. And so, Jennings, I think there are tons of red flags. I think it's an obvious avoid this year in fantasy football. And most of this is just basically figuring out, hey, what are our red flags? What are things we're looking at that are like, sound the alarm, and why shouldn't we take these players? And again, are there going to be players on this list that end up doing well this year? Inevitably, there will be 1 or 2. We are pretty sure about most of them, but of course, there are always going to be some things that happen where, again, there's going to be a Jags running back that ends up being good this year. But I don't want to take a shot on 1 of 3 of them. It's just bad fantasy strategy. So, make sure you drop a like. Make sure you subscribe if you enjoy the analysis. We appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you later.